Intro. The year is 1624. Across the great rivers and bustling ports of Ming China, the scent of saltpetre drifts from guarded warehouses, mingling with the spice-laden air. In the imperial capital, under the shadow of the Forbidden City, the emperor's most trusted alchemist presents a small, clay-sealed jar to his sovereign. Inside lies the power to change the fate of nations, a power that will never leave China's grasp. Gunpowder has already reshaped the world. It has turned castles into ruins and warriors into soldiers. But it is fragile, vulnerable to moisture, and quick to spoil in the damp air of the tropics. Until now. In this timeline, Imperial China discovers the secret to preserving saltpetre, the vital heart of gunpowder, for decades without decay. With this single breakthrough, they lock the key to modern warfare behind their walls, controlling every spark, every explosion, every battle that will be fought for centuries to come. From the deserts of Central Asia to the gates of Constantinople, armies will march and fight only at the pleasure of the Dragon Throne. And across the seas, Europe, hungry, restless, and armed with nothing but steel, will be left in the shadows. This is the story of a world where war itself is owned by one empire, and the future fires only at its command. Part 1. Historical context. In the early 17th century, the Ming Dynasty still stands as a towering presence in the world. Its borders stretch from the deserts of Central Asia to the warm waters of the South China Sea. Its markets hum with the exchange of silks, porcelain, and tea. Its fleets patrol the coastlines, guarding the empire's wealth and influence. Gunpowder, a Chinese invention centuries old, has already spread across Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. It has turned medieval warfare into a new and brutal art, replacing knights with musketeers, and stone fortresses with earthworks and cannons. Yet one ingredient remains the true heart of this transformation: saltpetre, or potassium nitrate. Without it, gunpowder is useless dust. Saltpetre is fickle. It absorbs moisture from the air, clumps into useless lumps, and loses its potency within months in humid climates. Armies in the tropics learn to fear not just the enemy's muskets, but their own: weapons that misfire, cannons that sputter, powder that turns to sludge. This instability limits the reach of gunpowder warfare and keeps sieges short, campaigns cautious. In our history, saltpetre's preservation was never perfected until centuries later, forcing nations to produce it continuously and transport it quickly. This kept the balance of power fluid. No one state could dominate the supply for long. But in this altered history, that balance is about to shatter. In the bustling laboratories hidden within the Forbidden City, imperial scientists are on the brink of a discovery that will make saltpetre as stable as grain, as portable as silk, and as valuable as life itself in the age of gunpowder. Part 2. The chemical breakthrough. The winter of 1624 settles cold and dry over Beijing, the north wind sweeping through the high walls of the Forbidden City. In a quiet courtyard, far from the chatter of ministers and the clatter of soldiers, the imperial workshop glows with the orange light of furnaces. Here, artisans craft porcelain for the emperor's table, jewelers shape gold into dragons for his crown, and a small, windowless chamber hums with a different kind of work. Within, Li Shankai, master of alchemy, moves with deliberate care. His hands, stained with years of grinding minerals and boiling strange brews, hold a clay jar the size of a child's head. Around him, assistants in quilted robes pass him tools, tongs, brushes, ladles of molten resin. On a central table lies the heart of his experiment, a batch of freshly refined saltpetre, white as snow, gleaming faintly in the lamplight. For decades, Li has watched the empire's armies suffer in the south and along the humid coast. Powder spoils before it can be used. Muskets fail. Cannons choke on damp charges. If the empire could carry its power to the farthest shores without fear of decay, its reach would be limitless. His answer lies in the most unlikely of sources: the lacquer trees of southern China, the volcanic clays of Yunnan, and a resinous sap used by fishermen to waterproof their boats. Through months of trial and error, Li has created a coating that seals each grain of saltpetre within a thin, airtight shell. The grains no longer clump or spoil, they pour like dry rice even after years in the wettest air. Tonight, the proof will be shown. In the courtyard, soldiers load muskets with powder made from Li's preserved saltpetre. Snowflakes melt on the barrels, dampening the charges, yet when the command is given, the air erupts in a perfect volley of fire. The blasts echo off the courtyard walls, leaving no misfire, no sputter, only the acrid tang of victory. The emperor, seated under a canopy, smiles faintly. He asks one question: how long will it last? Li bows low. Longer than the reign of any man, son of heaven. Within weeks, the process is declared an imperial secret. Workshops are built in guarded provinces, and every grain of saltpetre in the empire will pass through the hands of the Dragon Throne. The world's most important weapon now has only one source, and it will be sold, or withheld, at the emperor's will. Part 3, The New Monopoly. By the spring of 1625, the new saltpetre preservation process is no longer just an alchemical curiosity, it is the spine of an imperial strategy. Edicts from the Dragon Throne ripple outward, written in vermilion ink and sealed with the jade stamp of the emperor. The orders are precise: all saltpetre within the borders of the Ming Dynasty is to be collected, refined, and processed under imperial supervision. Private production is outlawed. Existing stocks are seized and replaced with jars sealed in the distinctive lacquered clay of the imperial workshops. Each jar bears the Crimson Dragon mark, a sign that it has been blessed, measured, and deemed worthy of the emperor's armies. Export becomes the empire's sharpest weapon. For allies and tributary states, Korea, the kingdoms of Southeast Asia, and even the distant Mughal court, shipments flow steadily, carried in guarded caravans along the Silk Road and loaded into treasure ships bound for the Indian Ocean. Every jar is counted, every grain accounted for. The powder within can sit in a vault for 20 years and fire as sharply as the day it was made. For enemies or rivals, there is nothing. European merchants who once traded silver for silk now find their holds searched and their cargo confiscated. Portuguese traders in Macau are denied their usual allotment, forced to rely on smaller, local production that spoils before it can reach their garrisons. Dutch captains in the East Indies send desperate letters home, warning that their muskets are no match for the firepower of Chinese allies. The monopoly transforms China's ports into fortresses of wealth and power. Guangzhou and Quanzhou bustle with merchant fleets, their warehouses stacked high with lacquered jars guarded day and night by imperial soldiers. The sound of hammers and furnaces fills the air as new workshops rise in Yunnan, Sichuan, and along the Yangtze. The penalty for smuggling is death. 2 European traders caught with stolen jars in Manila are paraded through the streets before their execution, a warning to every would-be thief that the emperor's powder is not for the taking. Within a single year, the balance of military power tilts. No kingdom can sustain a long war without Chinese saltpetre. Those who resist the Dragon Throne's demands find their cannons silent and their armies crippled. Gunpowder has become the empire's greatest export, and the world's most dangerous dependency. Part 4, Geopolitical Consequences. The ripple of China's monopoly spreads quickly, turning distant wars into lopsided affairs. In the east, Korea's armies, long overshadowed by their larger neighbors, now drill with endless supplies of powder that never spoils. Their arquebusiers fire volley after volley in monsoon rains, their cannons pounding pirate fleets to splinters in coastal waters. Korea becomes a steadfast client state, loyal to the Dragon Throne in exchange for a steady flow of sealed jars. In the south, the kingdoms of Siam, Ayutthaya, and the Malay sultanates bind themselves to Chinese trade routes, exchanging spices, ivory, and precious woods for the lifeblood of their defenses. Fortresses rise at river mouths, and ships bearing Chinese-marked barrels patrol their waters. The Indian Ocean becomes a chessboard where every major piece bears the emperor's seal. The Mughal Empire, recognizing the inevitability of dependency, signs a formal alliance with the Ming court. In return for yearly shipments of preserved saltpetre, the Mughals grant China privileged trade access to gems, horses, and Persian artisans. The alliance cements a vast corridor of stability from Bengal to the Persian Gulf, guarded by gunpowder that can fire in desert heat or coastal storms without faltering. Europe, however, is left in the shadows. The Portuguese fortress at Malacca, once a symbol of European dominance in the east, struggles to defend itself with powder that degrades after a single wet season. Dutch and English outposts in the Spice Islands watch helplessly as Chinese-backed fleets seize key ports. Even the great powers of the West, Spain, France, and the Holy Roman Empire, feel the pressure. Without direct access to stable powder, their colonial ambitions slow. Wars are fought with fewer guns and more steel, sieges revert to months of starvation rather than days of bombardment. The Ottomans, pragmatic as ever, seek Chinese favor, trading silk and porcelain into Europe at inflated prices. In this alternate balance of power, Istanbul becomes the western gate of the powder trade, and the Sultan acts as a broker between East and West. By 1630, the strategic map of the world has shifted. The heart of military innovation lies not in Europe's foundries or arsenals, but in the guarded workshops of southern China. Diplomats travel thousands of miles to kneel before the Son of Heaven, knowing that without his jars of white crystal, their armies will wither before they can march. War itself has become a tribute to the Dragon Throne. Part 5: Economic Impact. By the mid-1630s, China is no longer just the Middle Kingdom, it is the arsenal of the known world. Saltpetre preservation has turned gunpowder into the most sought-after commodity on Earth, and every jar that leaves a Chinese port carries with it both wealth and political leverage. Guangzhou, Quanzhou, and Ningbo become more than trade hubs. They are fortified cities of commerce, each with a network of guarded warehouses stacked floor-to-ceiling with lacquered jars. Entire districts are devoted to saltpetre processing, furnaces glowing day and night, barrels arriving on mule trains from inland mines, dockworkers loading cargo under the watchful eye of imperial soldiers. The tax revenue is unprecedented. A single ship bound for the Mughal Empire carries powder worth more than the annual tribute of entire kingdoms. The Board of Revenue reports surpluses so vast that even the most ambitious imperial projects are easily funded. The Grand Canal is dredged and widened, new stone bridges rise across the Yangtze, and coastal fortresses are reinforced with bronze cannon cast from taxes paid in silver, silk, and gemstones. Saltpetre becomes the empire's white gold. Its value rivals, and in some regions surpasses, that of tea and porcelain. Merchants grow rich on the trade, but only under imperial license. The monopoly's strict control means smuggling is rare and extraordinarily risky. Those who succeed in slipping a jar past the port inspectors can name their price in distant markets, but discovery means certain death. Foreign powers quickly learn that economic cooperation with China can bring immense rewards. The Sultan of Aceh sends annual tribute fleets laden with pepper and cloves in exchange for guaranteed powder shipments. The Khmer court offers rare elephant tusks and sapphires. Even Venice, long a maritime power in the Mediterranean, sends silk-buying envoys eastward, hoping to secure small quantities of preserved powder through Ottoman intermediaries. For the Chinese economy, the monopoly has another effect. It insulates the empire from the fluctuations of global silver trade that plagued it in our history. When silver prices fall, gunpowder exports remain steady. Armies will always pay for the ability to fight, no matter the currency. By 1640, the Dragon Throne's treasury is the richest in the world. Not in gold, not in silver, but in the power to decide who fights, who wins, and who loses. And every decision comes sealed beneath a layer of lacquer, stamped with the imperial dragon. Part 6: Science and Culture. The saltpetre monopoly does more than fill the imperial treasury, it reshapes the identity of the Ming Dynasty and fuels a new cultural era. In Beijing, the emperor commissions the Hall of Thunder, a grand arsenal within the Forbidden City whose walls are lined with murals depicting the history of gunpowder. Court painters immortalize scenes of Chinese cannons roaring in the rain, arquebusiers firing in perfect unison, and tribute fleets arriving from distant shores bearing lacquered jars. In each mural, the crimson dragon mark of imperial powder appears as both a symbol of might and a seal of destiny. The military arts flourish under this newfound abundance. Imperial foundries design long-range cannons with barrels reinforced in bronze and steel, capable of hitting targets at distances unthinkable to European gunners. Artisans perfect the repeating musket, a matchlock weapon with a rotating chamber that allows multiple shots before reloading. While in Europe such ideas remain dreams scribbled in notebooks, here they are forged in steel and tested on the parade grounds outside Nanjing. Civilian life is touched by the monopoly as well. Fireworks, long a Chinese tradition, evolve into intricate public displays that rival any court ceremony. Preserved powder allows pyrotechnicians to create elaborate, multi-stage bursts that light the skies above festivals for hours without fear of damp failure. The sound of cascading explosions becomes a mark of imperial celebration, echoing across palace courtyards and village squares alike. In literature and theater, the monopoly becomes a motif of national pride. Poets write of the dragon's breath that can reach beyond the horizon, while playwrights craft heroic tales of soldiers guarding the sacred jars from foreign thieves. Scholars compose treatises on the science of preservation, carefully omitting the precise formula but praising its ingenuity as proof of China's heavenly mandate. Even music changes. Military parades feature new percussion ensembles that incorporate powder-based signal charges, producing sharp, rhythmic booms to accompany formations of soldiers. These displays are as much about intimidation as they are about art. Beyond China's borders, the imperial dragon stamped on every jar becomes an object of fascination and envy. In the courts of Asia and the Middle East, preserved Chinese powder is displayed alongside jewels and relics, its seal a reminder that true military power lies far to the east. In this alternate world, saltpetre is not just a weapon's heart, it is the heartbeat of an empire's culture. Part 7, The Dark Side of Progress. By the late 1640s, the brilliance of the saltpetre monopoly casts long shadows. The empire's control over global warfare has made it rich and feared, but it has also sown seeds of danger that grow quietly within its borders. The first cracks appear in the provinces where the raw saltpetre is mined. In the dry caves of Yunnan and the nitrate-rich soils of Sichuan, laborers work in harsh, suffocating conditions. Dust from the mines clogs lungs, water sources grow bitter from runoff, and once fertile fields turn white with residue. Villagers begin to speak in hushed tones of the emperor's poison, resentful of the tribute exacted from their land. Sporadic riots break out, and the imperial garrisons respond with brutal force to protect the mines. Smuggling grows into a shadow economy. The rewards for slipping a single jar of preserved powder past imperial patrols are immense, enough to buy a house in Macau or a small estate in Goa. This draws not only desperate locals but also organized foreign agents. Dutch traders bribe corrupt dockmasters in the Pearl River Delta, Portuguese captains hide jars in false-bottomed cargo holds, and rogue Mogul merchants siphon off shipments meant for royal arsenals. Each breach tightens the emperor's paranoia, leading to harsher inspections, public executions, and an ever-expanding network of informants. Politically, the monopoly warps governance. Military officials, flush with resources, begin to eclipse civil administrators in influence. The army's voice grows louder in the Forbidden City, and succession intrigues often hinge on which prince can secure the loyalty of the arsenal's keepers. Some generals even dream aloud of replacing the emperor with a more martial ruler, one who would turn the monopoly into a permanent war machine. Economically, the empire becomes dangerously dependent on a single commodity. While revenues soar during times of war abroad, they falter during prolonged peace, and the emperor, wary of such downturns, finds subtle ways to encourage foreign conflicts that will keep powder demand high. It is a dangerous game, one that risks igniting wars too large to contain. By 1650, the Ming court remains supreme, but the air around the lacquer jars feels heavier. Every grain of preserved saltpetre still glitters with promise, yet behind that gleam lies the quiet truth that no empire, no matter how mighty, can hold the fuse of the world forever without burning its own fingers. Epilogue, a world in the grip of powder. For centuries have passed since Li Shankai sealed the first jar of preserved saltpetre. The formula remains an imperial secret, locked in the archives of Beijing, its knowledge passed only to a chosen few under oaths older than nations. The Ming Dynasty never fell, it adapted, modernized, and expanded, ruling a vast network of territories and client states bound together by trade, diplomacy, and the steady rhythm of gunpowder. In this world, the Industrial Revolution did not begin in Europe. Steam engines, railways, and precision machinery were born in China's great cities, financed by centuries of monopoly wealth. The capital, still called Beijing, gleams with glass towers alongside ancient palace walls, its skyline lit at night by both electric lamps and the shimmering bursts of state fireworks. War is rare, but its balance is absolute. The Imperial Powder Authority regulates every grain of military propellant, from high-speed railgun charges to ceremonial artillery salutes. No nation dares to defy the Dragon Throne without first calculating how long their arsenals would last without Chinese supply, and the answer is always the same: not long enough. Europe, fragmented and slow to industrialize without reliable powder, became a patchwork of smaller states. Colonization of the Americas happened piecemeal, led by China's allies and trading companies rather than by European empires. The great ports of the Pacific, Manila, Lima, San Francisco, fly banners bearing the Red Dragon, symbols of allegiance to Beijing's trade authority. Yet the monopoly's shadow endures. Environmental scars from centuries of nitrate mining still mark the Chinese heartland. Black markets thrive in borderlands, selling contraband powder to insurgents and smugglers. And somewhere in the high-tech vaults beneath the Forbidden City, the original handwritten notes of Li Shankai remain sealed in gold and lacquer, untouched for generations. The empire stands, the powder flows, and the world still turns on the spark struck by a single man's discovery. If war is the language of power, then for 400 years, China has held the only pen. Thank you for joining us on this journey into a world where the spark of every battle was held in a single empire's hands. You've been listening to Night Chemistry, your quiet passage into strange histories and chemical wonders. Sweet dreams, and may your night echo with the distant thunder of the saltpetre monopoly. Good night.